My inbox looks like Times Square at midnight. Flashing offers, urgent warnings, things ending today, things just for you, and messages written by someone who learned English by speed-reading cereal boxes. None of this arrived because I invited it personally. It arrived because the inbox replaced mail, calls, and sometimes the front door. At first, email felt orderly. You gave your address to a bank, a store, maybe a magazine. You expected statements, receipts, and the occasional announcement. Somewhere along the way, that turned into daily updates, weekly digests, we miss you notes, and a surprising number of opinions about socks. The volume rose slowly, almost politely, until it didn't. Most people didn't notice the change in real time. It crept in between normal messages, one extra email at a time. By the time it felt overwhelming, it already felt permanent. The inbox wasn't just communication anymore. It had become a marketing surface, a testing ground, and a place where attention itself quietly became the product. And yes, I'll admit it. Years ago, when this started to feel unmanageable, I mashed the unsubscribe button like it was a garage door opener. Click, click, click. Problem solved, I thought. I wasn't angry, I was efficient. Or at least, I believed I was doing something sensible and grown up. Except the opposite happened. I'd unsubscribe from one thing, and days later, 3 new messages would show up from names I didn't recognize, all suspiciously cheerful about my interest. It felt like mailing a card that says, "Please remove me from your list," and then receiving 3 catalogs anyway, different fonts, same lawn furniture. That experience trained a lot of people to be wary. The button that claims to make things stop sometimes feels like the button that proves you're paying attention. You click it, and the noise gets louder. Over time, the reflex shifts from action to hesitation, because the risk feels abstract but real. Part of the problem is that email changed faster than our instincts did. In the US, legitimate companies were eventually told, very plainly, that if they send marketing email, they have to provide a clear way out. That rule exists to keep normal commerce from turning into harassment. It works when everyone follows it. But right alongside that system grew a separate ecosystem that doesn't care about rules, clarity, or patience. These messages imitate the surface of legitimacy without the structure underneath. They copy language, timing, and tone, but ignore obligations. From the inbox level, the difference isn't always obvious at first glance. So now everything shows up in the same place. The newsletter you signed up for, the store with your receipt history, and the message from customer support team at a domain that looks like it was typed during turbulence. They all ask for a click. They all sound urgent. They all arrive uninvited to the same quiet space. From the outside, they look similar enough to make a reasonable person hesitate. That hesitation is the real issue, not whether you clicked once and regretted it. The inbox stopped being intuitive. Old signals stopped working. Politeness stopped aligning with safety, and certainty quietly left the room. So the useful question isn't should I unsubscribe? It's when does that button actually do what it says, and when is it just another way to invite more noise? That difference matters now because the cost isn't drama, it's attention. And attention is the only thing the inbox reliably takes. That's the part worth decoding, not to win, not to fix everything, just to know what's being asked of you in that moment before you click. Once you see the structure, the button stops feeling personal. It's just a tool. And tools work better when you know exactly what they're connected to. By the time most people ask whether they should click unsubscribe, they're already tired. Not confused in an abstract way, tired in a very specific, modern way. Too many messages, too little signal, and a quiet sense that every click might make things worse than before. That fatigue is understandable. It builds slowly as the inbox fills with offers, updates, and warnings that all claim importance. What gets lost isn't intelligence, it's patience. And when patience runs out, even simple decisions start to feel risky instead of routine. Here's the part that actually matters. If an email comes from a legitimate company you recognize and have interacted with, the unsubscribe button is not a trap. In the United States, it's required by law. Real businesses must provide a clear way to opt out. That's why in Gmail, Apple Mail, and Outlook, you'll often see a small native unsubscribe option at the top of the message, near the sender's name. That button isn't designed by the marketer. It's surfaced by your email provider using verified technical signals. In plain terms, that top unsubscribe is a real exit door. If you recognize the store, the newsletter, or the service, and you remember signing up or buying something, clicking it once is usually enough. You may confirm. Then the messages stop, no drama follows. Where people get burned is assuming every unsubscribe works the same way. It doesn't. Messages from unknown senders, odd domains, or vague names like customer support team don't follow those rules. They imitate the surface of legitimacy without the obligations underneath. If an email asks you to confirm your address, reset something you never touched, or download a file to finish unsubscribing, that's not housekeeping, that's bait. Clicking links inside those messages signals one thing only. The address is active and responsive. Think of it less like opting out of a catalog and more like responding to a chain letter that costs fewer stamps than it used to. The delivery method changed, the intention didn't. Attention is still the prize, and engagement is still the confirmation they want. So the practical rule is short enough to remember without writing it down. Known sender, known relationship, and a native unsubscribe at the top of the message. Use it. Unknown sender, strange wording, odd domain, or urgent language. Don't engage at all. Mark those messages as spam. Block the sender. Let your email provider do the work it's designed to do. That's not rude. That's accurate classification. You're not refusing a conversation. You're declining contact that was never properly introduced. There's also a simple routine that takes about 20 seconds and saves hours later. Before clicking anything, glance at the sender's domain, not just the display name. Then look for the email client's unsubscribe, not a link buried in the body. None of this requires paranoia or perfection. It just requires noticing that not every message deserves politeness. Some deserve silence. Once you separate those two categories, the inbox behaves less like a slot machine and more like a tool again. Once you get comfortable with that rule set, something else happens that's easy to miss. The inbox stops feeling like a test. It becomes background again, not empty, not perfect, just quieter. And that quiet gives back attention you didn't realize you were spending all day defending. That reclaimed attention shows up in small ways. Fewer interruptions, fewer moments of irritation. The inbox still fills, but it no longer feels like it's grading your reactions. Messages arrive, wait their turn, and stop demanding immediate judgment from you every time you open the screen. It's tempting to say the internet got nastier. In some ways it did. The volume increased, the incentives sharpened, and the competition for attention intensified. But much of what feels overwhelming is simply scale colliding with habits formed in a slower, more deliberate communication era. We didn't grow up with infinite messages arriving at zero cost. Our instincts evolved around scarcity and intention, so when automation took over, our reactions lagged behind the machinery. That gap isn't a failure. It's normal drift, and it explains a lot of modern frustration. Most of the pressure people feel around email isn't about technology, it's about manners. There's a quiet belief that every message deserves acknowledgement, that ignoring something is impolite, that clicking feels more civil than declining. That belief once had context. It made sense when messages were scarce and personal. It makes less sense when messages are duplicated, automated, and sent to millions of addresses simultaneously. The social contract changed, but the emotional reflex didn't immediately follow, creating guilt where none is required. Once you internalize that difference, the guilt thins out. Marking something as spam isn't a moral judgment, it's sorting. Blocking a sender isn't rude, it's maintenance. You're not opting out of society. You're setting a boundary with software systems. There's also a quiet identity shift here. Knowing when to unsubscribe and when to block becomes a form of modern literacy. Not impressive, not flashy, but stabilizing. It separates reacting from choosing, and those small choices accumulate into calmer daily routines. The humor is that none of this is actually new. We dealt with pop-up ads. We dealt with dial-up sounds that felt argumentative. We learned to close windows, install blockers, and move on. This is the same skill set, dressed more politely. The 20-second routine matters because it scales. Check the domain. Look for the email clients, unsubscribe at the top. Ignore body links if anything feels off. No lists, no research. Just a repeatable motion that works even when attention is low. Over time, the inbox reflects that steadiness. Fewer surprises, fewer jolts, less second-guessing, not because the system improved, but because you stopped negotiating with it. The relationship shifted quietly, without ceremony or announcement. So if the inbox feels calmer lately, that isn't luck. It's practice. You're still learning, still laughing when something ridiculous slips through, still very much in it. See you in the next move.